name is Joseph Lyon, and this being the 20th presentation you've seen so far, I'm sure you know exactly why I'm here. The Doll Art Center tasked us with creating a game that can bring more people in to visit the doll, and I'd like to give you a brief overview of my idea. It's called Artrepreneur, or in other names, Picasso's Green Period, or You Have to Spend Money to Make Monet. More specifically, I'll be talking to you about Artrepreneur's purpose, its target audience. I'll also be talking about what it would require of the doll. I'll also be showing you what the game might play like. So back to its purpose. We all know that the doll needs more people to show up. With that in mind, my target audience is 16 to 35-year-olds with little interest in art. People that I'm sure are very prevalent in Rapid City, but are not very likely to show up to the doll. With this in mind, I decided to keep the focus off of art and move it towards gaining fake currency. In my experience, I found people with high interest of art talks to them in a language that I frankly just don't understand. But if there's one thing AC/DC taught me, is that money talks. And most of us speak that language. Specifically what the doll would need to implement this game are three things that I know very little about, but I'm sure they're attainable. There's going to need to be a server hosted by the doll. It will need to be able to communicate to the applications that are open. It'll need to catalog a list of artificial collectors, including their collections and preferences. It'll also need to catalog a database of the art currently on display at the doll. Not images per se, but the titles, the artists, and a list of characteristics of the art. The application would preferably be free to download off of both Google Play and the Apple App Store, and Wi-Fi would need to be available in the entire galleries. I believe that these are feasible and worth it. To prove it, I'll show you how the game is played. I whipped up this really quick user interface that might be what it looks like. As I mentioned before, the main focus is money and not art. Your net worth, which is the sum of your available cash and the face value of the art in your inventory, is displayed in the top left. And you'll see there are a couple of tabs that display your clientele, your market, and your inventory of art. In order to increase your net worth, you're going to have to take the role of an art dealer, purchasing pieces of art from the market that's available to you, and selling it to the artificial clientele, which you can see descriptions of their preferences. If their preferences align with the characteristics of the art, like the movement that influenced it, or the media per se, it'll be worth more, and if it doesn't align, they might not even buy it for the face value that you purchased it for. Now, here lies one of the important game design elements, the unnecessary obstacle. Every collector will only buy one copy of every art that you present to him, so you'll need to start selling to other players. Now, there's no centralized location where you can find players that are willing to buy and sell, so you're going to need to go out into the galleries and convince them that your painting is worth purchasing. Now, I'd like to show you what this might look like. This is a beautiful piece by Claude Monet, painted in 1872. It is a promenade woman with a parasol. I originally planned to pitch this art to you, to convince you to buy it. I was going to talk about the emotional response elicited by me in seeing this art. It reminds me of one of my favorite days I've ever lived. But I was also going to talk about Impressionism, something I had to look up. But I'd also talk about more simple things, like the vibrant blue, or how the blue complements the dark green. All in all, that pitch I wrote lasted about 6 minutes, so I decided to cut it, much to your dismay. But instead, I'd like to impress upon you that I'm the first of possibly many success stories of Artrepreneur. A few days ago, my favorite piece of art was Boston's debut album cover. But in trying to convince you that this piece of art is worth appreciating, I convinced myself that this art is appreciated by me. That's a common experience that I hope that this game would bring about. I'd like to conclude by reiterating that I talked about Entrepreneur's purpose, its target audience, the requirements that the doll would have to bring, and I briefly showed you what the game might look like. I'd like to open it up to any comments, questions, or concerns that I can address.